Okay, so just so you know, look, we're recording this session so that we can share this as a resource to other postgraduate associations. There will be a Q&A session at the end of this workshop, and at that point we will stop the recording so that you can feel free to discuss with Liz anything that might be a more personal matter. Anyway, in the meantime, over to you, Liz. Thank you.
Lovely. Thank you so much. Thank you, Craig. And thank you also behind the scenes. We have Jody as well. Just to begin, thank you very much for organising this event for this evening. There's a fair bit that goes on behind the scenes, so just want to acknowledge that. And welcome everybody. It's so nice to see so many people here and joining us tonight or afternoon, depending on where you're located around Australia. So really wonderful to see so many people. Just to add to some of those housekeeping items in terms of how this session will run. So we've got about an hour together. Approximately 45 minutes of that will be the training, and then we'll have, as Craig mentioned, we'll have a dedicated Q&A time at the end. If you feel you have any questions throughout the training, please feel free to raise your virtual hand. If you've got any questions, you can ask them obviously during the session. But do know that at the end, you will have that dedicated time as well. So it might be, particularly for this first webinar, it's probably a little bit less interactive than the other two that we'll have. But so it might be just good to just sort of sit and listen and think about what I'm talking through, and then we can answer questions at the end. So what I'll do first is just share my screen. So I've got some slides, and it's not going to be death by PowerPoint, I promise you. Just some slides to accompany what we're going to go through tonight. And I know as well that you've got access to the worksheets, the Excel worksheets that I've also have been sent out to you prior to the session. So it's wonderful if you've got those on hand, but there's certainly no need for you to be interacting with them in a great amount of detail tonight. They're really what we're going to be working through, and then it's going to be a really great resource for you to work through over the next week, hopefully, after learning what we've gone through tonight, and we'll continue to use them in the 3 webinars that we've got set up, which is fabulous. So I wanted to acknowledge first off that it's just so wonderful to have, you just see my slides clicking over, here we go. So wonderful to be presenting and taking such a highly skilled and academic experienced group of people through this training. So it's really wonderful to be doing that. And also just want to acknowledge that it's really lovely that you've come along, and obviously you've decided that you want to take some steps towards improving your financial situation and your financial well-being. And that's a really great thing to be doing at the end of 2021 and working into 2022, sort of starting, on your best foot forward. So it's really wonderful that you've been able to join here tonight. What I wanted to start with was really to, I guess, the common things that you share as a group of students is obviously the fact that you're doing postgraduate studies. And as I've seen on the list of attendees, it's wonderful that there's quite a variety in terms of the fields of study. So we've got people here from health, business, law and arts, science, education. So a really great sort of spectrum, and also some studying PhD and some doing sort of master's coursework and also research. So really lovely. But the common connection that you all have is that you're doing postgraduate work. So you've come through your undergraduate. Hi, thanks. And I guess the commonality there is what I wanted to relate what we're going to be looking at in terms of managing our money, is that managing money can often be sort of thought of, and it's quite similar to postgraduate study. So postgraduate study, can be at first quite overwhelming when you start and you get enrolled, and they've got a whole lot of work ahead of you. You're not quite sure how you're going to tackle it. You're not sure what the expectations are. So managing your money can feel quite similar. So it can be at first quite overwhelming. You're not quite sure, where you are. How you want to get to, how you're going to get to where you want to get to, what help you might need along the way. But the good thing is that, like both, so postgraduate study and managing money, if you have a structure and a system that you follow, you can actually transform it to be a topic that might overwhelm you, to actually a source of strength. And that's what I really hope, that I can empower you with some new skills and knowledge that's really going to help you feel like you've got some strength in terms of managing your money and feeling much more. And if we're thinking about financial well-being, you're going to feel like you're moving along that financial well-being spectrum and feeling much more confident and calm about your finances. So that's really the aim of this seminar series. This is our first time that the SCPA have engaged somebody like myself to really add some resources for you to help with your finances. So we've started off with really some foundational topics. And I guess based on some of your feedback and how this goes, we'll be able to add in some additional topics, hopefully next year as well, and keep providing you with information. Lovely, I can just hear myself echoing. All right. So in terms of how the webinars are going to be structured, I've just kind of laid out here what the 3 webinars are going to focus on. So today, where you can see the yellow line around, we're going to focus on helping you to understand where you are currently financially. So it's really important that before you make any financial decision or start to, so it may be that currently you're, for example, maybe looking to buy a house and you're trying to work out how do you get your deposit together, or perhaps you're thinking, should I switch, credit card providers, or, maybe I need some assistance because I think that I'm actually in financial hardship. So all of those different scenarios, it's actually really important, regardless of what situation you're in, to start off having a really good understanding of where you are, so that whatever decision you're making is coming from a place of being really informed, and also having really good awareness of your own relationship and behaviors with money. So that's really what we're going to look at in tonight's seminar. So my aim is that at the end of this seminar, you're going to feel like you've got access to a resource that you understand how to use and that you can work on in the next week to really give yourself some really good tangible structure around understanding your financial situation. And then from there, next week, we're going to look at, okay, based on where you are, and this is absolutely, individual, you'll be completely, your own situation. You look at, well, from that place of where I am now, where do I want to go? What is it that I want to change? And we'll look at ways of being able to identify that and create some really relevant and specific goals for yourself, financial goals. And then in the third webinar, we'll look at, well, what are some of the ways, really great specific actions that you can have for yourself to work towards those goals. So that's really what we're going to be looking at in this next 3 weeks. So each webinar is held on a Wednesday, just the same time, same place. Welcome to my office. So same time, same place, and 3 weeks consecutively, we'll go through these topics. So I hope that sounds like it's something that you're interested in and that you're going to really get some value out of. So I'm really excited to be sharing and going through this with you. Now, Craig did give me a little bit of an introduction, so thank you again for that, Craig. But at this point, I just wanted to also make sure that you knew who I was. So again, you understand that I've had, so most of my career I spent actually as a management accountant. So I'm a CPA, management accountant, business analyst, working across a number of big organizations. You can see the company logos down the bottom there. And I guess the real core of the work that I did was helping those businesses to manage their financial resources and understand the situation that they were in, the resources that they had, and then the goals and the longer term strategies that they want to achieve. So I helped them through that process. So it's quite similar to what you do with an individual as well. So understanding what are the resources that this person has available to them, what is it that they want to get to, where do they want to go, and then looking at some really great strategies to help you achieve that. So I really draw upon that experience that I had in the corporate world when I do my counselling. But as Craig said, I'm also completing the financial counselling, and I'm almost finished that financial counselling qualification. And I also run my own, which is the last little symbol on the side, I run my own financial literacy training business as well, working with small businesses and individuals, helping them to really improve their relationship with money. So both from the finance technical side, but also the emotional behavioural side. So I'm going to bring all of these experiences and knowledge together and hopefully share them with you and empower you with that knowledge so that you can have a really positive and functional as opposed to dysfunctional relationship with money, and you can really feel like it's a strength within your life. So that's what I'm aiming to do. And obviously, of course, Craig mentioned at the beginning that there are free financial counselling sessions with me available. So they're funded by SAF, which is a really wonderful resource as well. So if anything that we go through in these sessions you feel like you need my support and help with, or it triggers perhaps questions, or you would like to talk through some particular part of your financial situation, I am here to book sessions with, and there's no strings attached. They're absolutely free. So this is just a wonderful resource that's just recently been added to the suite of resources that the SCPA offer to the students. So that's a really great thing that I hope people take advantage of. Okay, so let's get started and get into the nitty-gritty of this training session. And I know, as I mentioned, I know there's many of you from different fields of study. Some of you may have had some experience with Excel before. Some of you may hate it. It doesn't, I'm hoping that I can maybe convert those who hate it into loving it. But it is the tool that we'll be using and that I would recommend you using to really structure and understand your finances. So I'm just checking in with Tim's question here. So I'll try and just keep an eye on the chat as well as we go. Fabulous. Yes, no worries, Tim. I'll note that you haven't received the spreadsheets. And what I'll actually do, maybe after the session, Craig might be able to just make sure that we send them out to everybody again, just to ensure everyone's got them. So thanks for letting me know. But it's not vital that you need it. You don't need it for tonight, but you'll make sure you get them tomorrow. Okay, so now having a bit of an understanding of where we're going with these 3 sessions, coming back to what we're going to do in tonight's session is really about, as I've got here, it's understanding by understanding your financial position, which is what I'm going to help you do tonight. You can really bring calm and confidence to your relationship with money. And it's going to help you to make really informed decisions that relate to your particular situation, align to your values, and it also help you to identify any gaps that you might have. So if you do need help with something, if it is financial counselling, or if it's a financial advisor, or if it's a tax issue, this is going to help you to be able to work out, well, what is it that I need? Often when we come to managing our money, we're really good at listening to other people and thinking about taking action without actually understanding somebody else's situation. So you might see someone purchase something or make a financial decision. And of course, we're all influenced by the media as well. And we often take action without knowing what our financial situation is and what we're actually trying to achieve. So that's why I'm saying this is my recommendation of a really great starting point and foundation to increasing your financial well-being. So how are we going to do this? So tonight, that's what we're going to do tonight. So we're going to look at 3 different elements that make up the first part of that financial well-being worksheet in Excel that you will have. So the first thing is being able to start off creating what we call a personal balance sheet. So for those of you who might have studied accounting or have any finance background, you'll be familiar with what a balance sheet is, but I also don't want to scare people away with finance jargon, and you'll see in the spreadsheets that I actually try to use other language. So what that's really going to show you is where you are in terms of what you owe and what you own. And obviously the net of that is going to tell you essentially whether you have debt or you're carrying debt, more debt than assets. So we're going to have a look at what that looks like in the spreadsheet and how simple it is to actually put that together and put together your personal finance balance sheet. And essentially what that says is, okay, these are the financial resources that I currently steward. I currently have these resources, and this is almost the starting point from which you can start to make decisions and start to make goals. The second spreadsheet and recommended step to take in this initial stage of really getting to understand where you are financially is to reflect and take notes about your own inner resources. So I'm not just interested in the money, the dollars and the cents, obviously that really matters. But if we're talking about financial well-being and improving your financial position, we've also got to acknowledge that money isn't just about money. It's about how you feel about it, how you think about it, how you interact with it. Because we know that, you know, somebody who could have a lot of financial resources can still suffer a lot of stress to do with money. So it's not just the money that really increases our financial well-being. It's also about how we think about it. So we need to be aware of how are we currently thinking about it, and what are our strengths in terms of how we manage it. You know, are we a bit reckless, or are we really considered and calm and confident? Do we seek out help when we need it? So it's really important at this stage to really take note and do a little inventory of how you are feeling about your financial situation and what you think about money. And we've got a tab in the Excel worksheet for you to sort of prompt you to think about some of those emotional aspects to do with money. And the third element that I want you to be able to go away and feel like you're going to be able to do over the next week is to create your own personal income statement. So it's really looking back at the past 12 months and looking at where has your money come from, you know, the money that you've had coming in and the money that's gone out of your life. So really important to get a real sense of how has money been coming in and out of my life over the past 12 months. And really important to just take note and take stock of this first before we move into budgeting and planning for the next year. It's really important just to stop and check in with where am I currently and how has my money been being managed currently over the past 12 months. So that's what we'll do in the third worksheet. There is a fair bit of work that goes into this, but once it's been done, it actually makes the next two steps really easy, and it makes budgeting really easy. But it's really important before we rush into that, because most people, when they come to doing anything about their personal finances, and probably the most common thing is that they might have a bit of a budget. So they'll work out a bit of a budget, but it doesn't really add to their financial well-being because they haven't taken the time to actually reflect on what has actually been happening. So what is the income that I actually receive? What are the expenses? What am I actually paying out? And having time to look at that and really, you know, increase your self-awareness around how you're interacting with money. So I can't, and I know from the personal consultations that I have been providing over the years, this is one of the key ones that really changes the game for people. They really start to see the numbers and understand why they're in the position that they are. But it also shows them that they're actually in a really powerful position too, because it's all up to them. They can change their behaviors. They can also be really motivated to change because they can see what the result of some of their previous decisions have been. Okay, so I hope that everybody's following along with this okay. So our next sort of step in terms of the training is to walk through each of these three elements with you, so you feel clear about what you need to do and how you could go about doing it. And hopefully that will seem really straightforward. I tried to make it as simple, and what I'll do is I'll talk through each of the three elements in terms of where they are in the Excel spreadsheet, and then I'll jump out of this PowerPoint slide, sorry, and jump into Excel and actually go into the worksheets and navigate it. And when we do go through, if you do want to have a counselling session with me, we do use these spreadsheets as well. So it's going to be really helpful if you've done some of this pre-work already, and then we can start to use the time to, you know, really look at what are some of the strategies and systems that might help you. So it's really wonderful if you can have a go at doing it yourself. But if you feel too overwhelmed and it's just not something you're comfortable with, know that I'm also happy to help you do it as well in those sessions. Okay, so the first tab is about creating your personal balance sheet. So understanding exactly what you own and what you owe. So this is going to really start to help you to really understand exactly where you are. And I've just taken a snapshot from that Excel file, just with an example here as well. So you can see I've highlighted the little tabs. So this is in my financial resources. So this is really giving you a snapshot of, if you decide to do it tomorrow, for example, a snapshot of exactly where you are financially. So what you would do is log into your internet banking and I find, probably copy and paste the account balances of all your debit accounts if you have them, if you've got, other high interest accounts. So in this example, that's what this example person has got. So as of October, and you usually have a specific date, so it might be the 31st of October, this is how much money that was sitting in those accounts. They might have a just in case fund, so an emergency fund, which is in a separate account. And they've also logged onto their super and identified that that's the current balance of their super as well. So this is some of the examples of things that you might have in your what I own. Does anybody else want to share some other ideas of what they might also include there? So it doesn't need to be personal, but it could be any other things that you think that you could add in or that would be included in the what I own section.
And what about your car? Like, I just finished paying off my car. Would that be something then I would put in there?
Yes, absolutely. Great example. So yes, you definitely have your car in there. And if it's paid off and there's no loan, you're not going to see a corresponding, owing amount here. And what I would recommend is that you would add in what the current market value is. So in this kind of situation, you want to be including what it is, what price would you get for your car if you sold it today? That kind of idea. So yes, absolutely. I'd love to see a car in there. Any other ideas of things of what you might have here is what I own?
What about your possessions? Is that something? No, I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, fabulous. So definitely, and it's really those ones, it's a tricky one. I know you're not going to itemize everything, but there's certainly, if you've got things that, like a laptop, you might have some technology that's of a significant value. You might have maybe some special jewelry. You can certainly put together and think about, okay, approximately, maybe it's $5,000 worth of personal and household kind of goods. So absolutely. So include those. That's a great thing to have there as well. So car, home kind of things, technology. Anything else? There's a big ticket item that maybe we're all hoping that we'll have one day, but any other ideas of what we might also have on the what I own?
Your home.
Fabulous. Thank you, Sharon. Yes. So your home should be there as well if you own your house as opposed to renting. So you would see a home there and you would see the corresponding loan. So the amount that you still own on that home. So for example, if your house is worth $700,000, you would include the $700,000 here, but perhaps you took out a loan and you're still paying off that loan and you've still got, say, $500,000 to pay off. The corresponding loan on the house would then be included in the what I owe section. So then the net of that will be incorporated when you calculate your full net financial resources. Fabulous. So they're really great common examples. And with this spreadsheet that you have, the Excel spreadsheet, it's completely customizable. So if you can add in rows, take them out, obviously, change the item names and add in the correct values that obviously correspond to your situation. So just work that through until you've got all of what you own, and then again with what you owe. So you might have a credit card. So in this example, this person might have $480. That's the remaining balance of their credit card. That's what they still owe on it. You've probably, most of you or a lot of you will have a HEX debt. So great to sort of log onto the system to see what that updated current balance is. It's just a really good idea to get. So you're really getting a great sense of where you are. And I know that for some people, this is a big hurdle when they're sort of wanting to get their finances sorted, and sometimes they hide away and like, I don't want to know. But trust me, once you've structured it and you can accept where you are, you can then start to make some really great informed decisions to work towards goals and work towards changing some of these things. And that's what we're going to look at next week. So I know that this can be an emotional process. And that's why it's really important to take note of some of those emotions too, as you're working through this. You might find yourself feeling all sorts of things, but don't try to brush it away. Just, keep working through the spreadsheet, and know that it's really going to be really valuable.
Putting the HEX debt balance in what I owe, that's just more for your own, I guess, reality check on what it is that you're owing, because I sort of forget I even have a HEX debt because I'm not at that point yet where I'm earning as much money yet where I have to start paying it off. So I just forget it's there half the time. And I know it's a lot, but like you're saying, it's probably it is good to put it in there because it's going to give you more of a realistic
holistic, and you're getting a holistic picture, and that's what this is really trying to do. So you'll have that holistic picture of where you are, and what you're already picking up on there is really important is, and we'll talk about this next week as well, is once you've itemized everything, there's going to be different strategies and actions to take based on those items. So jumping ahead a little bit, and you're absolutely right with your HEX debt, there's no reason why you should be paying that off any earlier. There's just, in terms of, and I can get into the details of it, but it's just good to know, because here you're just capturing exactly where you are. And yes, you do have a HEX debt, and it may then make your financial resources, as this one has, go into the negative. But you can also start to recognize and understand these figures and also the value of some of them beyond the numbers. So you've done some great study, and at some point that you're going to obviously have a job, and that HEX debt will slowly come down as you're earning money, and that's all that you should worry about. So you can leave it. You might then also be able to, once you understand, the debt almost that you need to take action on, and others, it's almost like the good debt and the bad debt. Sometimes we talk about it like that. In terms of you compared it to, say, your credit card debt. And if you've got a number of credit cards, and once we get to the third step here tonight, you'll see how much that credit card is costing you as you're paying it off. You might then have a different kind of goal around, okay, I really need to do something about that specific part of my financial situation. So, so it's really good to have everything here. Because you get that holistic snapshot of where you are financially. So but really great to add in how you're thinking and feeling about your HEX debt as well, and some of the different approaches to it.
Thank you. I was just even wondering, do you know if a HEX debt affects a person to get accepted for a mortgage down the line? Is that something that?
No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't get included. No. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, no worries. Great question. Yeah, really good question. Okay, cool. All right, so I'm hoping that so far everyone's feeling okay about, and even ticking over in their mind, thinking about their own personal situation, and that they feel like that's something that they can go away and do. And it will take a little bit of time if you set it aside, going in and checking in all of your balances and everything. I know that will take time, but you can see how valuable it is, because it just gives you that snapshot. And then going forward, what you'll do to track how you're progressing financially is do a check-in like this. And I often recommend, at least every quarter, but if you're just starting out and wanting to make a big change to your finances, every month you might check in, and you'll be able to see your progress. This is the space which will really capture that progress, and you'll start to see what impact that you've been able to have on your financial position. So it's really valuable. Just want to check in with a question that I've got here. So you've got, what about uni expenses? So your uni expenses are going to come into the third section when we're looking at our income and expenses. So we're going to identify those then. So thank you for that. And I think sorry, just to go up, sorry, Abadika, before I get to your question. until graduation in the sheet. So we'll get to the uni expenses and see if I answer your question when we get there. Okay, just ask me again if I haven't. Thank you. Thanks for your question too, Parika. Nice to have you along tonight. So regarding the HEX, would the bank worry about it? Will limit your take home amount if you're over the paying limit. Do you mean in terms of your repayments, your home loan repayments?
Yeah, if I apply for a home loan and the bank see that due to your salary threshold that yes, you have to start paying HEX, that's reduce your net income.
Absolutely,
so,
yes. Yeah, that's a consideration.
So they would consider in that, isn't it? In that situation, they would.
Yes, thank you, Badika. Yes, so that it is in the picture. So it's not about determining whether you get the loan or not, but what they do is they look at the cash flow implications, because when somebody lends you money, they want to make sure that you're going to be able to pay back the loan. And obviously, when you have HEX debt, that you're going to need to pay out from your income to pay off that HEX debt. So they will just incorporate that as almost like an expense that you've got to pay. So they'll want to see like a profit and loss statement to see, a budget to make sure that you can repay that loan. So that's a great thing to remind us of. Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah, fabulous. Okay, great. Did anybody else have any questions around this just at this stage? Just keeping an eye on the time.
Just really quickly, in regards to paying off the HEX debt, is that something that you organise with your payroll?
Yes.
Is that something that they would do or work out themselves? Because I always wondered how you would go about making those extra payments so you're not owing the taxman money because you didn't pay enough tax to cover that in the financial year. So I was just wondering how it sort of goes. Yeah.
Good question. And yes, so it should be your payroll area, and that's who you should talk to, and that they then work out how much of your pay should be then paid towards coming off your HEX loan. So you can also check though with your HEX and to work out, to make sure it's probably worth doing now and again to make sure that you are paying the right amounts. And people do encourage, particularly if you change jobs or you get a promotion, just to make sure that the right amounts are coming out. So it's definitely a conversation, with payroll and HR. And then you can also contact the HEX people and check in with them as well.
Thank you so much.
Lovely, no problem. Because it's obviously something that's relevant for most of the students here as well, so it's good to talk through. Okay, so our next piece then, so moving on from this personal balance sheet, let me just come out of that chat. I just captured everything. Oh, okay, so I think I've got a couple more questions. Do I know? Good, okay. Sorry, I'm used to using Collaborate when I'm teaching, so I apologize if I'm a bit clumsy when it comes to Zoom and PowerPoint slides. I'm much more of a, okay. So the next section in the Excel spreadsheet that you'll see that I really encourage you to do, as I mentioned earlier, is to make sure that you're taking note of your emotions and behaviors, and also, because I call this kind of your inner resources. So we think about when we think about our financial life, we automatically go to the numbers and the dollars and cents, which I say of course is important, but we must also spend time on thinking about our own inner resources as well, and acknowledging what has your journey been with money, and thinking about that. So looking at that balance sheet that you've just prepared, how is it that you've got to that place? It may be that maybe you don't have the balance that you were hoping for, but you've bought a home, or you've had some time, obviously not recently, but you've maybe traveled overseas, or you've done a number of different things, and that's why you are right now. So it's important to make sure you put context to the figures as well, and it's really personal, and that's why it's so important that you do this for yourselves as really part of self-care. I know the big self-care movement's really big, but finances really miss out sometimes, and they're a really important element of self-care. So I guess what I'm trying to encourage you to do here in this space, and I've added in some prompts really to get you to think about, for example, what are some of your most common emotions that you feel towards money? Is there someone that you can talk to about it? How would you like to feel about your financial life? some, even thinking about some of your strengths as well, beyond just numbers, but obviously you're all studying a number of different things. And through that, and of course, past work experiences and life experiences, you've got all sorts of skills that you can bring to having a really positive financial life. It might be negotiations and diplomacy. It might be creative thinking and being able to problem solve and think laterally about things. It might be, so I don't want you to forget all of those other skills that you have and how you can actually bring them into your financial life and how you manage your money, hopefully to make it more of a positive experience. Because I think the most common reaction when you talk about money is obviously that it's something that's not talked about. It's the root of all evil. It's something that causes people so much stress. So I really want you to also think about what are some of the changes maybe that you want to make in terms of how you feel and think and interact with money. Identify the positives, but also identify some of the things that you struggle with. Like if there is some reckless spending, or if there's just some really frustrating thoughts and feelings you have, jot those down as well in your worksheet, just so you've got a space where you can kind of acknowledge the emotions. And what I've just written on the left-hand side there is really with that self-awareness, which you'll continue to need to have as you live your life, and finances are going to be a part of your life forever. And you'll see that they will evolve as well, how you think and feel and interact with money. And the more you're aware of it, the more you're going to be in a great position to create some really effective systems and strategies to change the things you want to change and break down the barriers that you might have, but also to celebrate the things that you're doing really well, because I don't think we do that a lot with money either. So yeah, so this is really, that next tab is really a space for you to do that. And you can have a go at answering some of the prompts that I've got there, or as I said, create your own as well if there's something that you want to add in there. Does that make sense for everybody as well? I feel it's probably something you're not always expecting in a financial well-being and from a CPA accountant, but I think the emotions around money are just becoming more and more important. And I guess the idea too is with all of this is we're really hoping to take some of the stress away from money, so that you can really just focus and enjoy your time at SCU and your studies. So yeah, hoping that will really help.
Honestly, my whole emotional thing behind money is just feeling like there's never enough, or it's not consistent. That's my whole thing. Like, I don't know if everyone else, but I think, like it's one of those things where, you just kind of feel like, well, if I was in a stable employment, or, we weren't in a pandemic, or all these other things just didn't come into play that you're not foreseeing, then it's not really like your belief system, is it? It's more of circumstantial experiences, isn't it? Is that still something we need to reflect on in this section? Even though it's
absolutely.
Really
yeah, absolutely. So I think what I'm hearing there is it's almost like you feel like it's out of your control, and there's a real frustration that comes with that. So if that's how you feel now, where is it that you'd like to move to? And even though, as you say, that there's so many external factors and we can't control them, we can't anticipate them all, but we can help to move you to a place where you feel more in control and more able to adapt and more positively, manage those changes.
Yeah, I think just what you said about moving into like sorry, my daughter thinks it's funny what I'm doing.
I've got two young kids too, so no.
She just doesn't. As soon as you start doing something, that's when they decide they're going to muck up. But
no, she sounds gorgeous though.
She's only 3. She doesn't get it yet. But just feeling more, I guess, like as you said, in control was definitely one of them. But also, I find that I've had such a bad time in the last few years with stressing over money, and I don't want to do that anymore. I don't want to be in that place of stress and despair. So if I can move forward and avoid that would be great.
Yeah,
so
Yeah, perfect. And what you'll find is working through these 3 sheets is you're going to be able to identify what is it that's causing that stress and what is it that we can actually make some changes to or set up some systems and strategies so you can take that stress away, and give you a little bit of a buffer if it is, you know, so if something does change, that it doesn't become really, really stressful, that you know that you've got money set aside or whatever it is. So the strategy and the plan that we put in place will depend on, you know, exactly where you are. So that's why understanding all of this is going to be so important. But noting those emotions and where you are currently and where perhaps you want to get to, how do I want to feel about it, is really important too, because that's going to help you to then identify, well, what actions can I take? What are the tangible things I can do to get myself in that, and you can absolutely move towards it. I've worked with heaps of people in some that, you know, completely different circumstances, and there's always something you can do to create more, you know, calm structure and that sense of being in control. So yeah, it's so wonderful that, you know, and I'm sure there's others who are feeling the same way, and that's why it's so great to come to something like this. Particularly at the end of the year, you're like, right, I want to do something about this, and you know, take a different perspective or approach, and then start 2022, you know, in a new way. So I'm hoping that you'll get some real value out of this.
Thank you. Sounds very positive, so I'm looking forward to it.
Cool, fabulous. Okay, lovely. All right, so that's really good. So that's the second. I'm just keeping note of the time again. So I've already got to the point where we should be doing Q&A. So I'll just bring us through to the third part of the worksheets. And this is where you create your own personal income statement. And what's really important, as I know most people, as I said before, will kind of jump into doing budgeting and thinking about, okay, what's coming up. But what I really want you to do is to look backwards before we move forward. So really important to look at, okay, looking back at the past 12 months, what money has come in, what money has gone out. And internet banking is going to be your best friend for this section. So you're really, hopefully you've only got a couple of accounts and you can download all the transactions over the past 12 months, just put in those date ranges. And then it's going to be a matter of, you know, might download all of that into one spreadsheet. And then it's a matter of grouping them together. So this can take a little bit of time, but again, it's really powerful because you'll be able to have a snapshot of what's happened in the past 12 months. Have a look at, you know, how the money's come in, where has it come from? And yes, it may be varied, and where has it gone to? And then from there, when we get to next week, you'll be able to look at it and think, okay, what is it that I want to change? You know, what is it that I'm happy with here? Or what is it? You'll also identify some challenging areas as well, perhaps areas that you spend a lot of money on that you didn't realize. So it will really open your eyes to how you're managing your money. And again, you might feel certain things as you're doing it. So, you know, jump back to the second tab and add in some of those thoughts and whatever it might be as you go through it, because it is an intense process, and money is really personal, and that's why people avoid it, because it feels really hard. But once you get a really clear understanding of where you are, you'll definitely feel empowered to make some really, you know, responsible and personalized actions. So it's so this next section, yes, you're going to have, and again, it's going to be different for everybody depending on where your income comes from. But again, I just had an example here of, you know, you may have some Centrelink payments, you may have a part-time job, you may have a full-time job. I know some of you are working full-time and studying. You know, if you're sort of more along your study and life career, perhaps it's you have some investments as well, and you might have some dividend income, you might have rental income from a property. So that's where you'll see all of this income flowing in here. And it's important to get to the yearly total. So making sure you can get to that point where you can see, okay, what is the total that I earned? And by doing it through internet banking, you'll obviously get, so for those amounts that would be taxed, you'll see the net amount that's come out. But if you've got amounts that you then paid tax on at a later date, make sure that you then include that tax, and you'll obviously include it as a expense separately. So for some people that might be the case, But for others on a salary and the tax has already been taken out as you go, you would just include the net amount that you actually received. And yes, again, so there could be all sorts of different expenses. You might have rent. Most people will have groceries. Everyone should have that, if you eat out. And how you divide these up and the headings you give, it's completely up to you. So customize it so it makes sense for you, and give everything a name, and group things how it makes sense to you. There's no wrong or right way there. It's just a matter of being able to identify, okay, what are all of the things that I spent my money on over the past 12 months. And then once you've added them up, you'll see here, so you'll have the total of the inflows and then the outflows. And I've actually just could chop this a bit short, so there's another side to it. I kind of separated it into the costs that are fixed, that are almost the non-negotiables. And then I like to have a separate section that's your discretionary, so that if you are wanting to take some action in terms of reducing what you spend, that that discretionary area is the one that's going to be obviously the place to start. So yes, you'll see that the net of those will be, what is the impact. And so for this example here, we can see that this person has actually spent more than they earned in a year. And then from that position, it's going to be, once you've got all of this information in front of you, which I know can seem like a lot, so I hope it's not too daunting for anyone, but I hope you're feeling capable that you can go and complete those spreadsheets. And then come back next week for us to talk through, okay, considering where you are, how did you find that experience, and what are some of the actions, or before we get to actions, we're going to look at where do we want to go, what are some of our goals, and they can be really short term or medium term, depending on where you are and what you want to achieve. It's going to be really individual. So we'll do some of that next week. So I just before I sort of wrap up, I'll just wanted to jump across. Well, actually, does anybody want me to go into the Excel spreadsheet, or is everyone feeling quite comfortable that I've given you the little sort of screenshots of exactly what you'll see in that spreadsheet? Are you feeling quite okay about going in and using the spreadsheet that's been sent out to you? Yeah. Okay, great. Thanks, Peter. So Peter's feeling pretty confident. So yeah, great, lovely. Okay, so most of you are feeling pretty good about it. Okay, fabulous. And again, remember that if you are struggling, that I am here to help as well. So don't feel like you've got to suffer in silence. To get in contact, and I'll bring up the details of the SCPA helpline as well in a minute. But just to make sure, so I think I've just sort of summarized this already anyway, but just to be clear about where we're going next. So this time next week, we can have a look at setting some goals about where you want to get to. What is it that you want to change within your financial life? And it might be, looking at that balance sheet saying, I really want that credit card debt to be down to zero by, whatever date. Perhaps it's reflecting on some of the emotions. I want to, worry less about money and feel more in control. So that's a goal as well. And then maybe looking at your income and expenses. It might be, I want to really improve my income and increase that by 10% or whatever it might be. And I want to reduce some of my expenses. So it's going to be really individual, but I really want to make sure we can go through that process so you can walk away with some really clear goals, financial goals for yourselves. And then in the final webinar, we'll look at, well, what are some, strategies. I'll do some example goals and give some example strategies and actions that you might be able to come up with to get yourself to work towards those goals. Okay, so the key things to do next is for you to go away and hopefully work on those worksheets, come to next week's webinar, and as Craig had mentioned at the beginning, we have these financial wellbeing consultations or financial counselling sessions. So they're virtual one-on-one sessions with me, where completely free, non-judgmental. It's a really just open space just to hear, if there's a particular thing that you need assistance with, or if it's going through these spreadsheets and working through them just one-on-one. That's absolutely what I'm here to do. So the key thing to do is to email the helpline at scpa.net.au to book your session. Okay, so that's all the things I wanted to take you through. We can do some Q&A now. And Peter, so you have a question, something related to super. Is it a question to do with super?
Sorry, yeah, that was just for the booking for the sessions. My question for at that time would be around super. Would that still be something you may chat about?
Yeah, I can absolutely chat about it. I'm definitely, and I think as I said right at the beginning, I didn't say, but it's on the slide. So I'm not a financial advisor, obviously, but I do have, so I'm being an accountant, I've got broad knowledge, and I can absolutely, take questions and we can look at what is going on with your super and perhaps, what would be some good actions or maybe questions that you want to